Okay, next part of the tutorial for creating custom lakes for Pishtech's VR Sportfishing. We have a really trivial little lake here, and we are going to add splatting layers. Again, splatting layers are layers of texture that give your landscape a lot more detail when you view parts of it up close. And we are going to go back into our image editor here. Right away, I'm going to create a new file. This one's going to be a grayscale again because this is a map to tell us where different textures are on the map of the lake. Remember, I saved a mask in an earlier video. I'm going to load that now. So this gives us the area that it's the same as in the height field. It's basically where the water is, or in the texture, it's the area I tinted brown. But right now, we want to say splatting layers. Let's say we just have, we're going to keep this really simple for this one. We're going to give the whole land a grass splatting layer, and we're going to give the bottom of the lake a mud splatting layer. The mud doesn't have a lot of detail, the grass has more, but we'll show you how to do that. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to invert, let's do the mud one first. So we're going to do what is the lake. So if right now it's white, where, well, everything's white, which means right now the entire world is covered in mud. We only want the bottom of the lake covered in mud, so I'm going to invert the mask and invert the image. In other words, everything that was land now became black. Black for our mud layer says this is not mud at all. White for our mud layer says this is 100% mud. 100% mud means our texture that we created will not show through at all. Well, it's a grayscale image. We can take this image, and it's a very good idea to do this. We're going to map the contrast and brightness, and we're going to darken this maybe 20–25%. Why? Well, oops, hang on, I need to invert my mask so that what I actually darken is the white area and not the black that can't get any darker. Alright, now it's gray. That means that this is 25% gray instead of pure white, so 25% of our overall lake texture will show through the layer of mud, which is helpful. It gives it some character, it gives it some shadow, some depth, perception. It really will help a lot, okay? Another thing you might want to do, though, is to, I'm going to remove the mask, smooth your image a little bit to kind of blur the from the areas that are completely mud to the areas that are not, so that you don't get this hard line that looks like somebody came along with an edger and cleaned up in the mud from the land. All right, I'm going to do an average smooth, just not a really strong one, but there, it blurred the edge. That's what I wanted. I'm going to save this now as PJH Simple Lake Mud Alpha. An alpha layer means it's a level of transparency. Black meaning completely transparent, white meaning completely solid, and that's what this is. It's our map of the alpha. I'm also going to copy right now the file name, and I'm going to save that. Okay, we created that. Now we're going to go to our text file again, our lake definition file. There's a section of parameters down here for splatting layers, landscape texture parameters. All right, splatting layer texture file. This is actually the picture of the mud that you see viewed up close, but we need our alpha file. That's what I just created. I'm going to paste the file name on here so I don't worry about typing it wrong. I need to pick what image I actually want on here. So I'm going to look in my game folder at some of the textures already there. And here's the one I want to use. It's called Mud 128. If I open that in the image editor, see it's just a kind of a brown texture pattern. These texture images, they are repeating tiles, which means if I paint a wall with this over and over again like tiles on a bathroom floor, you will not see any edges. Any pixel, any line, any crease on one edge of the image will flow right into the other. If you have the image editing skills, you want to create your own repeatable tiles, go for it. If not, you can use the ones that are already in the game. There's a couple types of grass. There's stones, pebbles, sand and rock, and so on. So we're just going to use that one. Let's get the name, Mud 128 JPEG with an underscore. Okay, so that is the texture that I actually want to draw on there, mud underscore 128.jpg, and save it. Okay, now, splatting layer scale. You can change how big the texture looks in the world. It's self-explanatory on here. You can change the number if you want. If you want to make grass look smaller or bigger, stones look like boulders, play around with this number. The smaller the number, the fewer times in a given area the texture repeats, which makes the image on the texture look bigger. One of your splatting layers, and you can have several, I'd suggest not more than, say, 7 in it, just so you don't overload people's computers when they fish on your lake. But one of your multiple layers, your splatting layers, can be mud, can be soil, basically. You're saying plants can grow here. Well, this one is mud. We're going to say yes. The rest of them, you need to say no. All right, we're going to actually make 2 splatting layers right away, though. So I'm going to copy all these parameters. These are repeatable for the splatting layers, and I'm going to paste them. I'm going to delete the comments out of my second set just to simplify the screen a little, but the comments are just there. Anything that starts with these 2 slashes, that's just there for your reference. These parameters don't have any spaces in here, don't have any spaces at the end of the line. These things matter, okay? The next thing we're going to do is have a grass texture, so I'm going to go pick which texture to use. And here's one that will work. Grass 512 DK, that's for dark, .jpg. 512 is the size. So I'm going to put that in here. This one, grass 512 DK.jpg. And this time it's going to be my, not my mud alpha, but my grass alpha map. And this one is not a soil. Okay, save my lake file. I now have 2 splatting layers defined, grass and mud. Now we have not yet created our alpha map to say where the grass is. Well, the simplest thing we could do is say, well, grass is everywhere the mud isn't, so we just turn this image inside out. In fact, I could convert it to a line art image, so it's now solid black, solid white, back to a grayscale. So now I can, again, do things like smooth it, give it gray again. So now it's smoothed. We have a soft edge, but again, I don't want pure white so that my grass completely obscures the overall texture. So I'm going to darken it. 25% is a good number to do, and you can play around with all this. It's, again, just a guideline. All right, so now where it's gray, we have 75% coverage with grass, 25% of the overall texture showing through. Where it's black, we have no grass at all. Oh, but I want to save this as my grass alpha.bmp. Okay, and we have both of our files. We are going to start up the game. And here we go. We'll sign in as lake tester. Once again, it's also going to map our lake structure, but already you can see the difference. You can see the effect of the grass texture on here. So as soon as it's done mapping, we'll take a closer look. And we'll start a new trip again. So now if we get close to the mud, let's go first person view for control and zoom. If I zoom in on the mud, it looks a lot better than the simple bland thing that we had before. Also with the grass. From very far away, you might notice a checkerboard pattern to some of the textures. That basically means that repeating tile isn't as low in detail as it could be. The less detail you have in it, the less of this pattern you'll notice on these textures, but also the more you let your overall texture show through. See, if we look around, notice how there's still the light and dark areas that we painted on earlier, but if you zoom in close, we have grass instead of just a blob, and we have it fade from grass to mud instead of just switch with a hard line. So that's pretty cool. Also, where we said it's mud is places that weeds can grow once we add those in. So that's splatting layers. You can also have rock, any layers you want. It's a good idea to overlap your alpha maps so that your grass does overlap into your mud a little bit, your mud does overlap into your grass. Otherwise, you'll have stripes between the two that have no detail at all. All right, so that is the gist of splatting layers. The next thing we're going to do is go into how to build a more realistic lake. We are going to use the tool L3DT in the next video. It's the large 3D terrain generator. So we are going to say goodbye to our simple little lake here. It's been fun, but we're going to make something more realistic in the next